Howdy, I'm Jeff Fowle, and welcome to the KK Bar Ranch. Today I'd like to give you a brief tour of our place and the story that we, my wife, son, and my parents, the story that we have to share with you, the general public. I'd like to try to help put a face on agriculture, of what a family ranch and farm looks like, how we operate, and some of the challenges we deal with on a day-to-day basis. We're an average size farm in our valley and are solely self-operated. We raise alfalfa, grass alfalfa, plenty of pasture on which we run horses, Angus and Hereford cattle, as well as a few sheep on the other side of the place that my mom and dad take care of. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to our chauffeur for this afternoon, who's graciously volunteered to be our wheels for our tour of our ranch. This is my quarter horse gelding Tough. We prefer horses for our cow work, although we will use four-wheelers and periodically get stuck on foot and with a pickup. I'm the third generation to be working with the land on this ranch to provide food for our country. My son will be the fourth to operate this ranch, hopefully, and it is our dream that many more generations to come will be able to make a living working the land with the environment, nature and wildlife, enough to sustain a living for many families to come. Our first stop is right here at the barnyard. These are our simple corrals that we have slowly been putting together over the last 2 years, replacing all of the wood posts and board with pipe, as it's much easier to deal with and longer lived. Stopping by to say hi to one of our weanlings. This is Digger. She's a Percheron thoroughbred cross filly. And in this pen here we have Timmy, the black, who is also a Percheron thoroughbred cross. He's a gelding. And then the little filly right there, kind of buried in the middle, is little Jessie. And Jessie is a straight thoroughbred filly out of one of our mares. Continuing to the back of the barn, you can see our sale bulls for this next year. They're April calves, got weaned here recently. We feed out between 8 and 15 bulls a year to be sold to other cattlemen in the state of California as well as Oregon, Nevada and Idaho, who are looking for bulls to use on their cows, putting the steaks on your plate and the hamburgers in your buns. We wean and feed out, supplemented with a grain ration, and hay is fed in front 24/7. Coming out of the corral area, this is our round pen and arena setup where my wife and I both train horses, our own, as well as work with outside horse owners to learn how to communicate with their horses more effectively. We utilize natural horsemanship, and my wife is actually a one-star Pirelli professional. This is our hay barn, where we store anywhere from 100 to 120 ton of hay each year for use to feed horses and cattle on our side of the ranch. Our old Toyota feed truck, as well as the four-wheeler, which is heavily utilized in the summertime for irrigation purposes and changing water. Our next stop is what we call the hill pens. On the left we have my wife's two geldings. On the left is Bing, a thoroughbred Percheron cross gelding, and her other gelding Dan, who is a Percheron thoroughbred quarter horse cross gelding. And on the right side, we have coming up behind us a thoroughbred filly, Belle, who will likely be my next horse once I retire tough. And the gelding to her left is Gable, who is another Percheron thoroughbred cross gelding that we are working with and training, and he is for sale. And finally, my son's horse, used to be my horse, Pepperoni, who is a quarter horse thoroughbred cross mare. This is the first of our hay fields. On an average year, we will put up 750 ton of alfalfa hay. The first cutting we split between keeping for ourselves, feeding our own cattle and horses, and we also then sell part as export hay to Japan out of the port of Oakland. Our second cutting, we will retain some for our own use, as well as then sending on to feed stores for horse hay. And our third cutting will predominantly go into large 1-ton bales and be sold to local dairies. You can see right here we have implemented water efficiency technology and put in what is called a center pivot system. And over here to the left, you can hear Clint Custer, our neighbor, who grows entirely alfalfa as well as some cattle, who is meadow harrowing or dragging his alfalfa fields to knock down the mole hills, break down the growth, as well as begin to aerate soil. This is our second field of alfalfa. We, as I said before, will average about 750 ton a year on 130 acres. This second alfalfa field, you can see a lot of old growth on it. It's ready to drag. I ended up losing the ability to graze it last fall due to the fact that we had early rains and it continued to rain, and I was unable to get cows in to graze it off, and lost about 3/4 of a ton to the acre on 55 acres. Now we're coming up on our first pasture, which we call Field 3, and you can see out here we have 3 horses for winter. This one up closest, it belongs to my mom. That is her future cart horse. She is a Percheron quarter horse cross. And then we have Cassie, who is standing there in the corner. She is a full-blood Percheron filly, 3-year-old, who has been trained for driving and will soon be taking location at a new residence to help a friend of ours do some farming, probably a little bit of logging as well. And the little guy, Cinnamon, belongs to an elderly gentleman who's a friend of ours, who is simply here because his owner is no longer able to care for him in the way in which he requires, and so we do board horses periodically for people who need a home for their horses. And they're feeling good this morning. Even though it's February, it's feeling like spring. We're now about through the first field, coming into our second pasture, Field 4. As you can see, there's a ditch. Our pastures, pastures 3, 4, and 5 are irrigated predominantly with flood irrigation, surface flow from the mountains up French Creek drainage over there. Surface water. That was a little close. Caught my knee on the fence there. Thank you, buddy. You're supposed to be watching where we're going. The surface water is a very serious issue here in Scott Valley, as the state of California, through the Department of Fish and Game, is currently trying to take our water by requiring that we purchase numerous permits in order to divert, even though we have mitigated for all potential take of endangered and threatened species. And with the loss of the ability to utilize that water to grow pasture and provide water for the livestock, this ranch will have a serious issue in remaining viable, and likely will have to be sold and subdivided and put houses on. You can see off in the distance there are some Angus replacement heifers that we have in this field 4, and the following field, number 5, is where we keep our stallion as well as our remaining 4 thoroughbred mares, which we use. You've seen a number of their offspring at the beginning, up on the hill and at the barn. The market has changed for us since HSUS successfully passed legislation making it illegal to process horses in the United States, and the state of California has made it illegal to transport horses for kill in the state, which has made the market very soft. And so we have had to think outside the box and find a niche market. For us, it has been the warm bloods, crossing our Percheron stallion with the thoroughbred mares. There are 4 thoroughbred mares and our Percheron stallion. This field here, as well as flood irrigation towards the latter end of the summer, we will also utilize wheel line as a source of irrigation, as we do with the bottom hayfield, which is grass alfalfa mix with some clover. And our friend Maverick, our Percheron stallion, is trotting alongside to say hello to everybody. And we'll move on down to our bottom field where we have our spring calving cows. And here is our bottom field number 7, where we have our spring calving Angus cows. The falls are on the other side of the river, on the other side of those willows in the background. We use wheel line to irrigate this field, as well as flood irrigation in the early part. And this is field number 6, which is our alfalfa grass mix, which we keep all of the hay off of that field for use with our own horses. I'll give a quick tour of our tack room. Tack simply being the equipment that we utilize when we are utilizing our horses, playing with them and driving them. As I mentioned before, we have the light horses that we use for cow work, roping, reining, as well as the draft horses that we use for work and parades. You can see the collars and the harness along the one wall. We also go into the mountains, and you can see the pack saddles stacked there against the wall. More collars, our logging harness we use for pulling trees out of the mountains where they don't allow mechanized equipment, where we keep our saddles, our farrier supplies, toys for playing with the horses, the treats, medical supplies, and our lines that we have for driving singles, teams, 4-ups, 6-ups, 8-ups, etc. And of course our resident cat who wanted to say hello. Well, I hope you enjoyed this short tour on horseback of the ranch. Look forward to sharing more on my YouTube channel. You can find me on Twitter and also on my blog, Common Sense Agriculture. I hope to provide more live footage through the spring and summer as our ranching life can hopefully be shared with you. Feel free to ask questions either on my blog, on Twitter, or here on my YouTube channel. I hope you enjoyed it and have a great day.